Good evening. Welcome to the BCS Cheltenham and Gloucester Branch. So hope everyone is staying safe. So I'm Thomas and I'm the chair of the BCS Cheltenham and Gloucester Branch. So in our session, we organized monthly talks focusing on different areas of to encourage everyone in the Cheltenham and Gloucester area to participate and contribute. So we are always looking for new members to join in. So if anyone's interested in becoming a member of the BCS, please consider visiting this link as shown in this. So for our talk, for our webinar this evening, we have Andy from Slavic Heaven Limited, who is going to give us a talk on finding niche to stay relevant in your career. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Andy. So Andy, the floor is yours, so take it away.
Give me a couple of seconds. I'll just share my screen and hopefully everyone else can see that. Good evening, everyone. If you are tuning in from abroad, happy time zone. I doubt you are, but if you are, thanks for coming and having a sort of listen or watch while I try and sort of explain a few things and what changed in my life and sort of how I ended up writing this talk at the start of the year. So let's move quickly on. Well, not so quickly. So who, what, and why is the sort of general gist of this. So who am I and what am I doing here? Why am I talking to you lot? And why do I need to is a little thing. So I'm Andy Morrell, but online I'm also known as Lucky Number 11. Now, there's a bit of a story behind how that game, it was originally a gamer tag, but it's now my online persona, came around. But I got my Xbox 360 back in 2006, just after watching the film Lucky Number 11. Now, if you have not seen it, very underrated film. If you go and watch it, the cast is the cast is just out of this world. It's got people like Bruce Willis in it, Lucy Liu and Josh Hartnett and Ben Kingsley and Morgan Freeman. It's just huge amounts of people. But anyway, digression is something that I do. There we go. There it is, pronounced properly. I'm old, apparently. I'm 38 in April next year, but I've got a long way to go in my career, and hopefully you lot have too. I'm a dad of two kids. They are 6 and 4. Hopefully they are asleep by now. I put them to bed just before coming into my office, and I've just been a tech head for my whole life. So the story behind me, and something you might have seen in the preamble to this this talk today, was I got a Spectrum for Christmas when I was 8. It was the 128K plus model, which had the tape deck attached to it. In the good old days where computing magazines had full programs in the back of them that you had to copy and type out manually into the actual PC or console or whatever you were using at the time to develop, and Google and the internet basically didn't exist. And back then, on the same sort of Christmas that I got the Spectrum, my uncle, who worked for Oracle up in Leeds at the time, turned up in his nice sports car, TVR Griffith, and that was me. That was career chosen. And I'm basically a lover of all things code and technology, so that was it's been it's been an interesting 30 years as a developer, and what is it now, professionally 16 years since I finished university in 2004. And this final point, I'm a Microsoft MVP. I have been since January 2020, and I will be until renewal next year, and hopefully I'll get the next the next year and the next token in that achievement. And the Microsoft MVP is a sort of, I'll talk about in a bit and why I ended up with that achievement. It is in developer technologies, which is sort of the all-round Microsoft MVP. They do have their specific MVPs for things like Azure, for things like specifics in Office 365, in business analytics and everything else like that. So what am I trying to do today? I'm trying to help you find your niche like I found mine. I found mine just over 4 years ago. I'll talk to you about that. And teach you, well, either help you find one or find that there is one, or at least teach you where to find one, or that there is one for you out there. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but hopefully we will get to sort of talking about that. And hopefully in finding a niche or finding that there is one, that you can sort of remain relevant in your career. Now, I'm not going down the route of remaining relevant in your current by moving into a managerial system or moving sideways, as it were, into other parts, into other careers. Is how to remain in your current one, the one you chose. A lot of people choose development because they love coding, and I know a lot of people that have just stayed in that bracket and they want to stay there. But how can you stay in that career without sort of ending up just sort of trickling into management or trickling into something else, and you magically find yourself 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line and you're not where you once were and you actually don't want to be there, maybe. So why am I doing this? And this is basically, I'm a 16-year professional in development, been coding for 29 years. That is now 30 as of this Christmas. I can, so I do. So 4 years ago, my little boy was born and I wanted to spend a little bit more time at home. So what I took up was a strange, far-reaching hobby of live streaming. So for the past 4 years, I have been doing live coding sessions on a platform called Twitch. Now, over those 4 years, I just randomly started. I clicked a button and went, "Hey, look, I'm live," and created something that I wanted, and people watched. I ended up with like 2-3 viewers over the first couple of months, and now on a regular basis, we're up to 20, 30, maybe even 40 people. And I'm in a big community. Over those 4 years, I've seen that community grow. And now I'm in a team of nearly 200 people who do live coding. So it's not about just helping you find a niche. What I've done over the past 4 years is help myself. And I love doing that. And when I do that, I'm also helping you, because either I've had people come in and say, how do you do this? How do you do that? But also, if people like yourself want to get into this, how do you do that? How do you go about it? And how do you start sort of learning yourself? Because believe me, in the last 4 years, I've learned a lot more about code and development than I would have done if I was sat in my office doing my job. I'm saying just in inverted commas in that. So I'm going to go back a little bit here, because what is relevancy? So it's doing your job, learning, going beyond your role. So this isn't going beyond into that managerial one that I was talking about before. It was going into, oh, hang on, sorry, my notes are underneath the wrong thing over here. I just moved them. Sorry about that. It's how do you go about not just being a developer, but go about teaching those other people, like the peer management, the peer learning, and then there's the teaching aspect to that. So you're learning, doing your role, going beyond your role, and teaching others in your team, and being a really useful engine. So this goes back to Thomas. So Thomas was built to be steam engine, go around the island of Sodor, taking passengers around, doing all that sort of, being the useful engine he should be. But then over his career, or the TV programs that I've been watching for the past 4 years with 6 years with the kids, he decided to race Bertie the bus, and wasn't so useful because he was actually just racing and his passengers were buffeted, and they didn't quite like that. So he learned from that mistake and sort of tried to teach others about that. And then he got scared of the fog. He went to the other islands, and he now travels the world apparently, which is rather interesting. Especially from when I was a kid watching Thomas to now, it's changed quite a bit. So he's still relevant, and he's still doing the career he chose to do. He's still his steam engine. He's not turned into the Fat Controller, which would still be a bit weird, but he's still there. He's still doing his role. So today I am going to talk about my own experience, and I have done a little bit already. And that experience is me. This is the case study of me. So we'll go back, far back to 2004, until around about 2013 or 14. So I was doing my job. That's absolutely fine. I was just being me, doing what was needed. So I was delivering whatever product it was, delivering a little bit of a little bit extra here and there, not much, staying quiet and just getting on with it. And then being a coder, not a developer. Now, my first full major position came in around about late 2005. And for the first couple of years, the appraisals were, you're a great coder, but you're not quite a developer yet. What that meant was I was pumping out code. As I said just before, I was just creating that code, pumping out product, and that was it. I wasn't taking a step back. I wasn't thinking about what I was really doing, and I wasn't sort of taking those extra steps into doing the fluffy stuff, as my ex-boss put it. Now, that fluffy stuff meant sitting down, taking the time to realize what I was actually doing and what I was actually building, and where I could take that. So then we skip into the last 5 years. I took up the live streaming. That was one massive step that I took, because one thing that it did was it got me out there, rather than just going to work, then going home, and I know, just spending time with family. Spending time with family is really important. Please do that. But just going to work, going home, eating, having a drink, falling asleep in front of the TV. It meant I was going to work, coming home, doing that stuff, and then when the family were asleep and I was still awake, instead of falling asleep in front of the TV, it was a case of, hey, I can do something else. I can go online and broadcast what I'm doing. And the reason that came about is I started by broadcasting gaming, which is where the main thing of Twitch.tv comes from, is it's game streaming. So you watch people play other games, and it's basically living vicariously, because computer games can be expensive and buying all the hardware can be expensive. But as a developer, I had some hardware and I sort of took up streaming. And then I quickly got into the, hey, gaming I'm good at, but I don't want to be sort of watched while doing it. It wasn't something I was good at. So I moved on to development, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to do something that was useful. So I took on a thing called a bot, and that was on Twitch's website itself. And so I built a Twitch bot. But there was this library out there called TwitchLib, or Twitch Library, obviously short for. A C# library that was built, and when I sort of saw it, it was version 1 or something, or version 1.5. And in those 4 or 5 years, it's now on version 3. We're in a version 4 rewrite. I've become one of the 4 major contributors to that library, and it is open source. So I took on a project. Now, that has been absolutely amazing. That project got me back into development. It got me learning more about libraries and SDKs, open source, NuGet packages, and creating them. If you're into your .NET development, you'll understand all those words I've just been spewing out. If you're not, I am happy to answer questions. But if you're a JavaScript developer, it's similar to just NPM. And then we sort of move on to what happened next, was Twitch Dev. Now, Twitch Dev is the developer advocacy team at Twitch, and they spotted me doing doing TwitchLib and Twitch development on stream, and they went, "Hey, we're interested in doing an associated stream. Would you like to do that with us?" And I went, "Yeah. What would you like me to do?" And they went, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, right. So you've come to me and said we would like to do something, but you don't know what, which was fantastic, lovely. Sounds very much like a few product managers that I've been had as people that I know. Sorry, product managers out there. But they came to me and I said, right, okay, so I'll build something in this amount of time. And I took the equivalent of a gaming speed run, where on Twitch you see people complete a game in the quickest time possible. So I did the same with development, and it moved on to that with extensions. So I built an extension in less than 3 hours, and then I was put onto a list. At the same time, I was put onto a list of people that Twitch were interested in working with. I was invited to actually go and speak at their developer day in San Jose in 2018. So all this was going really well, and it was just snowballing very, very quickly. And I didn't really have time to sort of look back until this year of what was going on. Now, what I realized very quickly was I'd been learning new bits of code. I jumped in at .NET Core version 1, and I was working during my day work, which was all full .NET framework, web-based stuff, a few web forms here and there. I realized that I was learning JavaScript frameworks like React and Vue alongside other things that were outside my work environment. And it was pushing my knowledge exponentially forward. So if you take the first 10, 11 years of my career, it was very sort of flat, very sort of not doing much apart from the very basics. and then all of a sudden it just went straight up. And I was learning a lot and re-educating myself in a few other areas, re-educating some colleagues as well. So I was going back into work the next day and going, oh, I tried this excellent new technology last night. And it was just bringing that new thinking, and I was able to sort of take that extra step and lead and talk to my team a little bit more about new things and moving that forward. So it was really just like a little kid with a new toy, just going, this is so cool. And I think that's where half the battle is. It's that enthusiasm. Now, I know a lot of people, and when I last did this talk, a lot of people were very, how do you find the time? How do you find that enthusiasm to go and do things like this? And yes, that is the hard thing to do. You can try and you can try and do the work thing and try and do Friday afternoon learning, but even in my case, a couple of companies that I went into that did have sort of time set aside to go and do some learning, by the time you get to Friday afternoon, you want to do and they go, yeah, go and do some learning for a couple of hours. Yeah, it's a Friday afternoon. You're not you're not in one of those type of moods to go and do that. And I'm not a book reader. I'm more of a sit down, write a bit of code and see if it works type of person. So it's all down to the individual on how you do this and how you think about it. But hopefully just going, I went completely onto a different rail, a different realm of learning, and that was learning by doing, by showing people. And when you get people, when you get viewers coming in and saying, have you tried this, have you tried that? Recently in the middle of July, somebody came over and said, have you tried Avalonia, which is a UI library that is cross-platform for .NET? And I was like, no, I haven't tried it. It's fantastic. It's sort of a mix of WPF and a lot of XAML, but then also it's cross-platform. So it's sort of it's very it was just interesting just seeing that, and somebody came into my stream and actually asked if I'd seen it because I was doing something with Electron, because I wanted to create an app that was cross-platform, and Electron was sort of the one thing I knew would work, because we haven't got things in .NET that are good for UI-based stuff in .NET. At the time, .NET Standard 2.1, it was all .NET Standard 2. So it was moving technology forward and trying to have that new thinking. So when you have viewers coming in and saying that, or you have viewers coming in going, how do you do this? How do you get into development? What is the best language to get started as a developer? And you can give that information. It helps you learn the whole time, because over the past 4 years, or sorry, 4.5, 5 years since I have been streaming, the number of times I've been asked, what's the best language, or how do I get into development? I have now got refined answers on what that might be. And it is just my opinion. And that's why I do tell these folks, but it's something that I've educated myself. I've also tried to impart that knowledge on other people, but my learning through that has been crazy. So what I am doing now, so this year has been a bit of a crazy year. In July 2019, Twitch said, okay, you were on a list last year, and this was 2018 when I went to San Jose. We'd like you to build something for us. Have you got time to do that? So I went ahead and built this project for them. Took a couple of weeks, had a couple of other friends who are also in the development community help me. And to do that, I sort of created my own company, which is 11th Heaven. And 3 weeks later, after the event, after we built this project, after we delivered it, they said, "We love it. We want to bring you back for 6 months." And I was just like, right, okay, so I'm going to have to quit my job to do this. And they were like, "Fine, we're willing to wait." So the first time I did this talk was February the 20th ish in Cheltenham, and it was 1 month after I'd quit my job. I'd started 11th Heaven, and Twitch was my first client. And back then, it was COVID-19 was not a massive thing, and it was building up, and people were starting to be a bit more wary of it, but it wasn't really what it is now. So yes, this year has been scary, but this year I've been very, very lucky. So yes, I now own and run my own company. I am a Microsoft MVP. So at the start, I said that I became a Microsoft MVP on the 1st of January 2020, and that is in the area of developer technologies. Now, the reason I was nominated for this was because of my streaming, and because I promote development, I promote that learning, promote teaching, and try and do that 3 times a week for 3 hours. So I spend 9 hours a week doing this, by the way. And I was nominated by Jeff Fritz, who also just celebrated his 3rd year anniversary of streaming on Twitch. So yes, I was streaming before he was. Unfortunately, or great for him, he actually does have more viewers than I do. But that's because he's been around a bit longer. I'm not calling him old, honestly. Jeff, if you're seeing this, sorry. And I then became a public speaker. So I'm doing this for you now. And I spoke at the start of the year in Cheltenham. And in between then, I've done a couple of conferences, online ones. The Twitch, on Twitch, the large coding team that I'm on put on a conference called Live Coders Conference. And the first version of that conference, I did this exact same talk to 15,000 people, which was crazy numbers, scary, very, very scary. But you get, because I don't know what you're thinking, and if you have any questions, pop them in chat. When chat is scrolling that fast and you can just pick off a few little messages, it is scary, but you soon relax. And especially when you've been doing it for 4 years, you get to that stage. But it's all part of that learning process, and all part of the where next, and how do I stay in the career I want to be in. So throughout all of this, I am still a developer. I am still the head of development. I am still developing day in, day out, as well as doing a few extra business bits here and there, unfortunately. And luckily, my wife has been doing a lot of that business stuff as well, mainly because she's got a little bit more time now that the kids are of the age that they are starting school, and they are having fun. And when over on the slide, you can see that the conference organizer is one of them. So the Live Coders Conference, the second Live Coders Conference, and the third one, I was one of the main organizers of. The third one, I took a little bit of a back seat to let a few other people have a try. And I think one of the key points is I'm still learning. And especially after this year, that learning is taking a different route. So at the start of the year, I was very much I wrote an article and slides for 2020s, so this whole decade, the decade of remote working. Well, 2 months later, everything that was in that slideshow came true. But instead of 10 years, it took about 2 months. And I think learning from what has happened this year, I think, yes, remote working is going to stay, but evolve slightly. So it's not going to be 100% for everyone. It's not going to be 100% in the office for everyone. It's going to be changing. And I think like this time next year, I'll be changing my. Hang on, I can hear another voice in the background. Who's not got their mic muted? So yeah, I think things like that, I will be learning from what has happened this year and in the future, and we will be moving on and sort of changing those slides. I'll be changing these slides today again because of what I've said here today. I'll be watching the video back and learning from that. So next, what is next for me? It's the future. I'm going to continue teaching as much as I can. I'm going to learn from what I've taught so far and sort of introduce more things or create different ways of teaching folks. I'm going to learn even more, I hope anyway. This one is an interesting one. I'm going to search for different and more ways to teach and learn. So in the past 4 years, I haven't become stagnant. To sort of say, I've got used to the way I broadcast, and I've got used to the way I teach and learn during my streams. And so this year, being able to do presentations and actually push that forward, especially if you what has happened is when I added that Microsoft MVP tag to my name, and people have gone, oh, hang on. It's one of those in foot through the door type tags, and people are a little bit more interested about what it means in some cases. So that's why I think searching for different ways to teach and learn is something that I'm going to be pushing, and hopefully moving forward use that a bit more and educate others to hopefully do the same. So in the past 4 years, I've seen a massive increase of live streamers doing exactly what I do. And this year especially, there's been more people that have not been able to do conferences and talks like this, and have had to fall back onto other ways of getting their work out there and learn how they should present in different ways. So my streams are very interactive. So this being almost me talking at you is odd to me. So if you are watching this on things like YouTube and the likes, it's a case of, hey, this is not my usual way of doing things. And it seems a bit weird when I am doing it like now. So I think that's where I'm learning myself and trying to teach others. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but thank you very much for listening. I'm going to just check. No, nothing. Philip or Thomas, do you have anything? Oh, hang on. Points that define that. Hang on. I think there's more to that question. Can you identify and explain critical points that define your journey? I think there is, Chris, that's a good question. Overall, I think there is one, and that is the point 5 years ago where I took the choice or the conscious decision to go into live streaming and more consciously development live streaming, because although it took me a little bit longer to realize that I was learning quickly, or that much quickly, it wasn't sort of an instant epiphany, but that is definitely the point where it was a case. It wasn't a case of, if I do this, I will instantly learn more. It was, I'm going to do this because it seems like it could be an interesting hobby. And then a year and a half, 2 years down the line, I went, hang on, the amount of stuff I've learned in the past 2 years is quite frankly huge compared to what I've learned in the past, in the 10 years before that. And that included things on, like, in the previous 10 years, I had gone on training courses. I had learned what was in the newest version of .NET, but it's having that, and I think that is one of the main points of this. I think that is a good point, and something I will add to the slides is this talk does push that of realizing that you've got to make that conscious decision to learn and to continue learning, because if you don't, then you will end up like I was 10 years ago. So even though my learning and my career progression or learning progression in the past 5 years was almost completely accidental, hopefully this talk may push a few people into thinking, hang on, I do have to learn to stay relevant, because I am almost at the age of 40, but I've still got 30 years left. Where am I going to take those 30 years, and how am I going to stay as a developer for those 30 years? Although I may not want to stay as a developer for the next 30 years, but I really do like development. I am a code monkey at heart, and that's why you saw the monkey logo, or Steve, as I call him. But thank you very much for that question, Chris. I hope that answers it as well. Ooh, hang on. Right. Okay. So, thank you. That is a good question. Give me a second. I'm trying to increase the size of it so I can. Oh, Chris again. Right. So, Chris with another one. This year is redefining the remote working landscape. What has been the biggest challenge for you and my team? This year has. When I say I'm the head of development, I am the development team. Is one thing. However, when I said, like, I am the development team at present, but what I do have is I have two people that have been I do contract with, and they are also Twitch community developers. So over the past 4 years, I became part of the Twitch developer community as third-party developers, and I've gained access to a huge amount of developers, and it was more specifically friends around the UK and worldwide. So a couple of these third-party developers, one was called Tobias Toske, and Bressy, I can't remember his surname, but they are based in France and Germany, and basically they were my development team. When it came to remote working, I've been remote working now for 2.5 years, and what I see, I wrote an article in May about remote working and how this is not normal remote working, because for me, I've had 1.5 years of remote working in a normal situation and a year of work, almost a year of working in a not quite so normal situation. So the main challenge for me is not having a team that works well together, because I've been remote working for such a long time. The main challenge for me is how I keep myself sane. I say sane, how I keep myself mentally active and mentally able to continue working. Because one thing I used to do was go out in the afternoon, sit in the park with my laptop, do a couple of hours on the laptop in the park, or go down to the local cafe, have a couple of coffees and do a bit of work. And I honestly never ever went to the pub and have a couple of pints while doing a couple of hours of work. That may not be completely true. So with doing those things that you do on a normal day-to-day basis, and when those are basically taken away from you because pubs are shut, because cafes and restaurants were shut, gyms, all the sorts of physical activity places, and yeah, I think it's just one of those things where this is why it's not normal, because when it's normal, you can go out and do things where you can't at the moment. So, Mark Jones, can you tell us how you choose what technologies, languages to master versus dabble in? Right. Okay. So that was very much a personal preference for me. However, I'm sort of going to go down a little bit of a route on this one, because it's a rather interesting subject. So for the first 11 years, I was basically a .NET developer, doing a lot of all the way from framework 1.0 all the way up to what we're on now. We're on 5, I know, but I think it was 4.7 was the one before .NET 5, and C# and that whole web forms, WinForms, that was all ingrained in me for a long time, including a lot of SharePoint development, believe it or not. But then what I wanted to do when I started learning more was not do as much .NET work. So I started looking at UI frameworks, or the web-based UI frameworks like React, Vue, Avalonia, Angular, not Avalonia, Avalon. There was a UI, another JavaScript framework in there, things like Knockout, and all those other frameworks. So it was more JavaScript and wanting to learn that a little bit more than I already did at work. And when the actual main choice of those came from my viewers. So I actually sat there at the start of one of my streams and went, right, which one shall I do? And they picked it. And I've been using Vue for the past 4 years, and it's fantastic. I have done React. I did React in a professional capacity in a previous position before running 11th Heaven now. But then when it comes to dabbling and what I do on stream, over the past 4 years, I have touched C++, I have touched Python. We've done a little bit, we've mainly circled around cloud-based stuff. So we've looked at specific bits of technology, like in AWS, we looked at SNS one week, which is simple notification queues, or simple notification service, or SQS, which is a simple queue service. In Azure, we've looked at VMs, we've done Cosmos databases in Azure, and yes, I know it's Azure in the English pronunciation, but because I do speak a lot, I speak to a lot of Americans, because Twitch is a US based company, and it's always Azure for them over there. So unfortunately, I have to sort of change my pronunciation for a few things. And I actually do run the US American, the English US dictionary on my PC now. Bad. But yeah, when it comes to, sorry, Mark, went off on a bit of a tangent there. So yeah, the main technologies that I learn are typically viewer voted. Thank you. Anything else, anyone? I think if Thomas or Phil wants to come back, if there's nothing else, and we can move on.
So thank you to Andy for his amazing talk. So it's quite nice. It's quite amazing to see like how he has made the transitions to become a Twitch streamer and the challenges he's faced, and highlights the fact of the importance of lifelong learning. So I assume that so has anyone got any questions, etc. Okay, so assuming that everyone has asked their questions, so we'll be.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes,
Sorry,
I can, Philip.
This is Philip. I tried to send a question on the question link, but it didn't seem to work. So I've now turned my microphone on.
All
I was
right.
wondering
Okay.
whether Andy, you were seeking to look for projects to do which actually conform to your current interests and skill sets, or whether you're looking always to something which extends your knowledge. Do you have sort of preferences, feelings in that area?
I do look to things that may stretch my knowledge, but it also depends on what I'm currently working on or what I felt like currently working on. So it's more of a community aspect in that case. So when I had a gap in a contract this year, so my initial contract with Twitch was 6 months. We had a gap with gap of 2 months in between, and then I'm back with them for another 6. So what we're doing is what I did is I had 2 months where I was basically not working. So what I did is I went to the community and said, what should I do? And somebody literally put one line in chat and said, how about race simulators? So these are computer games that are more simulation based around cars and racing. So there's a few games out there like Formula One, and then there's some serious simulation games like iRacing, R Factor, and multiple others. And it was just like it instantly piqued my interest, and I was like, right, this is great. What can we do with these? Are there any APIs? And as soon as you sort of look into something and go, oh, it's an API, you sort of get to that little schoolboy excitement again, and you go, oh, we could have some fun with this. And if somebody came to me and said, try another sort of game type, for example, I'm not so interested in other game types, so it probably wouldn't have piqued my interest as much. as the racing game thing did. So yeah, and it didn't matter what language it was or what technology that you had to interface with these APIs was. It was, this is interesting, I'm going to do it.
Okay, thanks very much.
No problem, Phil.
All right, so any other questions from the audience? Okay, so silent means no. So in that case, thank you everyone who joined us for our webinar for this month. So we will be having similar talks in the next year. So we will be sure to keep you informed. So have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll see everyone. We will see everyone in the new year. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye now.